from my learnings or what I learned in Credit 101. It is, the primary, we focus on the primary payback and not collateral. We don't do collateral lending, it's primary, and so you have to understand the cash flow. And understanding the cash flow means that you must see the customer's books. And it is the data that helps. And today we have, and that's the beauty about technology. Today, we have credit engines that have algorithms there that can say, okay, based on this cash flow, I can see what this guy do with his business, the riskiness of his business, and how much we're ready to lend to them. And the more data that you provide to us, the better the decision we make on you. So it's a journey that is starting, but we can see, but the journey that is starting, but it requires hand-holding education, and and when I say hand-holding, it's not necessarily physical. Yeah. Things like generative AI are playing a big role in
ensuring that
providing that assistance to people.
AI is actually changing the game for a lot of businesses that are embracing technology, because I know that before, if I wanted to do a proposal, I would have to go through a lot of hassle. Now you just go either on DeepSeek or you go on ChatGPT, and something just helps to come out. But you see, I like where you're going with the conversation, and I see it. But I'm really hoping that we can get to that point where small businesses really find very tailored solution, and I think that's where you kind of like summed that conversation. Let's move on to poor infrastructure, right? Because again, but before we go on poor infrastructure, there are some businesses like, for instance, ours, media, right? Media is not that kind of transaction where you can be seeing cash flow anyhow. It's quite tricky. And I know some businesses that require certain kinds of patient capital. How do those kind of business position themselves in a way that they still look like, okay, I see where you're going and I'm able to still invest in you?
Well, then again, it's a story that you have. And it's like every business is what story is the story that you're telling and living that story. So what are you trying to do? Howard, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do that is different from
what others are doing?
What others are doing? What are you doing that is going to be sustainable? What is the addressable market? How are you going to make money out of it? When are you going to make money out of it? So being able to tell that story convincingly is what's going to bring your investors who are going to bring that patient capital. And the working capital is going to come from, okay, we've started our business, and we've proven the model, but we need to enhance our working capital, and that's where platforms in the ecosystem will help. On the lending bit, going back to lending, is a part of the problem we have today is that, like I said, big banks have all the data of small businesses. So there's some small businesses that have banked with traditional bank for 20 years, never borrowed in their life, and when they go out to borrow, they say no. And that's because they will always say no, because it's not cost effective. Now that's why at Sparkle we're also advocates of open banking. And open banking certainly just means that, Bank A, please give me all my data. Let me give permission to Sparkle to take a decision on whether to lend to me or not.
Based on
based on your 20 years.
History, yeah.
So I don't want you to give me the data. I want to pull the data
directly
from veritable sources. And when that happens, what will happen is that even the big banks will now start putting structures in place to be able to lend to people, and that's when you will see competition. Until the power is back in the hands of the customers, that's when you're going to see a real drop in cost of finance, and you will see more innovation there. And so that's why we at Sparkle are an advocate of open banking, because we actually want to open it up, because it is actually closed and locked.
That's amazing. So you just take it direct from source.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to poor infrastructure, because we know what our challenges are in Nigeria.
Yes, we do.
We have power issues, road networks, and transportation networks are quite poor. There's also poor internet, right? Because again, all these were
relatively poor internet.
Relatively, but trust me, we have like 4 different networks here.
Of
Some
course,
days
yeah.
it decides to just, go off. What would we do? So how do we navigate these challenges, and how do we intentionally, I mean, the invention, or rather the acceptance of green energy has really changed the game, right? A lot of people are moving, so at least to some extent. Some businesses have been able to stabilize the issue around power and all of that, but we still have connectivity issue. We still have what's it called, especially for businesses that require probably logistics, movement from one point to another. So how do we navigate some of those challenges that are beyond our control as SMEs?
Well, they're beyond our control as SMEs, but everybody else as well. And I would say the reason why larger organizations would probably do better is, one, because they have a lot of capital. So the ability to absorb losses. And then, of course, they will benefit from economies of scale as well. While as a small business, you are actually accessing or acquiring resources as you need them. You're paying as you go. Now, and I think that's where you have to. So even though the technology or the internet is haphazard, that's where you actually have to leverage technology to lower your cost of doing things. Now, let's take a business, for example. I mean, so I am in the food business. So all I need to do is prepare my goods, create awareness, and then get it delivered to my customers.
Absolutely.
Now, there are logistic companies around, right? So instead of you now taking on increased operational risk, right? Collaborate, because it's already a shared resource. So we have to find areas where, okay, how am I going to get my goods to market? I'm either going to buy, or I'm either going to access. Because access a logistics business. How am I going to reduce my cost of producing my goods? So there is that energy. So inverters, solar energy. So those are one-time investments that will reduce your cost of operations
over time,
over a period of time. And really, how many people do I need in my business, right? Who are the core and who are the outsourced? And outsourced, even your logistics should be outsourced, because that's not your core business. And so that's why, Sparkle Business for me, it's a wonderful platform, because it's not just about banking. It's not about banking. It's about managing business independently and free from people. Because the more people you have in a business, the higher the operational risks and costs. Because it's not just paying them salary. For some, at Sparkle, when we hire somebody, it's insurance, there's a laptop, there's space, right? And there's operational risk. So the less so we use, so instead of 5 people doing a job, if we can just subscribe to ChatGPT for one person, believe me, it reduces the cost. It's more efficient. And it actually works. I'm more efficient now. If I don't use ChatGPT 5 times a day, I think I've not been efficient, because there's so many things that you can do. And for businesses today, the freemium model subscription goes a long way to help them do business. You don't have to get a consultant even to start a business. So those are ways in which you can reduce your cost of business. The traditional way does not work anymore at all.
Absolutely. See me smiling. Why I'm smiling? Because when you give the example of the food business, part of what we want to do is, we've also noticed a gap in the media skill ecosystem. You see that small business, right? She would require us to be able to help. So she doesn't need to. We're trying to we have an unemployment challenge in Nigeria, young people, but most of them are unemployable because they do not have the skills. Now imagine you intentionally training digital content creators that would now be channeled into the small businesses to help make sure that their media presence is very, very appealing. All she needs to sit down there is post a very lovely picture of Amadla and Ewedu and Begri. Somebody is going to order it because you've done the bit, which is what we are trying to do within the media sector. Create this, upskill these people, and then pipeline them back into SME. So I see clearly where you're saying that it's going to help, put that cost structure. So we'll take a very short break. When we come back from that break, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having an amazing conversation discussing how we can empower SMEs through innovation. Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Send us, you can call us on 07025007749 or 07014242420. You can also join, just send us an add me to WhatsApp. You can join us via video. Yes, let's hear what you have to say. So, I mean, we've been having an amazing chat on this conversation around, what's it called, SMEs and innovation and all of that. Recently, I think it was even yesterday, actually, I had a conversation with someone from the company is called Order Paper. They monitor what is going on in the National Assembly. We've seen all the laws that are being passed around tax reforms and all of that. And I know that one of the challenges that small businesses face, I like the idea. In fact, that one you said is what I really want to, why I want to put my business on Sparkle, because again, most businesses are not able to monitor what their taxes should be and all of that. And with this tax reforms that is going on, I'm hoping that it would address some of the multiple taxation, because some businesses, you pay federal, you pay state, you pay. So imagine if you have that partner that helps you to tell you that these are the things that are required for you to pay and all of that. It just helps, right? So, I mean, just to just touch a little bit on how well we're doing as regards to tax regulations and what are the tax burdens that really, really stifle the growth of SMEs that, that if you had the opportunity to address, you would probably help with that.
I think there are too many, and they're very complex, and you're burdening people who won't pay. I think I know 70% or 90% of businesses in Nigeria don't pay tax. And not that they don't want to pay tax, it's that they don't understand what they're paying for, and there's a lack of trust in the process. Now, the great thing about the new withholding tax laws is that it is trying to incentivize businesses to formalize. Now, most of the businesses in Nigeria, you have 40 million businesses, and they say that 75% are informal. They are informal because, and then like when most of your businesses are in the informal sector, you have to question which is the real formal sector and which is not the real formal sector. And people are logical. They're informal because the cost of being formal is too high. And so they're better off staying informal. Now, what the government is trying to do with these new tax laws is they're trying to make it cheaper or cheaper to be formal than to be informal. And so it's simple with the new withholding tax. So if I don't have my papers, I do business, and I provide services for a business, it is 10% instead of the 5%. in some instances, if you have your
documentation,
there's no tax to be paid below a certain amount. So they're just simplifying that. And this is actually the first of many documents that are going to help incentivize. Now, I think the biggest challenge is financial awareness and education. And that's where you can't do it manually. You can't do it the old traditional way. You have to use technology to actually scale it. And that's one of the reasons why, I believe that generative AI is going to help us do that. Because part of the challenge of communication and education is taking that message down to the grassroots level.
Like in
the different languages
yes.
and everything, that common math language. Today, and a good example I use is that every time I get, my lawyers, every time they send me a document, I can't understand it. I just upload it to ChatGPT and say, please, explain it to me in layman's terms. And it just does that. So you can use this same example analogies and even being able to communicate in the language of the person is a big achievement. You cannot do that because how many people are you going to employ, right, to speak many languages in Nigeria? Meanwhile, you can actually create that in a very cost-effective manner. So the tax laws are one, but execution is going to require man and machine working together to actually do that. But if that is done, that will now, because one of the reasons, actually, one of the indicators, willingness to pay, when you want to lend to people, you have to assess them from ability and willingness. The fact that you pay your taxes means that because you're paying your tax, you're giving to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. If you can pay your taxes, you will definitely pay
back your loan.
Pay back your loan. So that for us at Sparkle, if you're paying your taxes, your risk is much lower. And so the premium that you're paying will drop. Will drop. And so those are the things that's part of the education that needs to be done. Why should I pay taxes? Because everything is cheaper.
That's interesting. So let's talk technology.
Yes.
And digital gaps that we have, right? I mean, you have an amazing product. There's still a very big issue around adaptation. A lot of people, they just struggle. Once they see technology, they're still a bit more advanced to it, And don't forget that some technology, why people run away from it is the cost. And some of them is just because they do not even understand it, the skill gap. So in addressing that, because we know, like you rightly said, the future, if any business must survive, you must embrace technology in one way or the other. How do we start to position SMEs to understand the need? And yes, there are cheaper options now. I mean, DeepSeek came and crashed everybody. I love them so much. Yes. Because people were subscribing. This I said, don't worry, you don't need to subscribe. And we are going to see more of that happening. Cheaper technology, in fact, free subscriptions and all of that. So what is that thing that SMEs should start to intentionally do when it comes to issues around skill gap and, of course, digital adaptation? Okay,
so I always say that the future, so you mentioned DeepSeek and you mentioned all the other platforms, but the technology is driven on data. So for small businesses, if you are going to be competitive, how are you capturing your data? Is it paper physical or is it digital? How are you collecting your payments or making your payments? Is it physical or digital? If it's physical, then you're losing data. If you're losing data, how are you going to be able to feed the information into whether it's DeepSeek, whether it's ChatGPT, to actually get help? And so the first thing for any business was if anyone's starting a business today, leave paper out of it, leave cash out of it, because those things are going to be operational risks, right? And the thing about technology too is that you can build trust into that solution. So today, as we were saying at the break, why e-commerce has not blown up in Nigeria is there are trust issues. And so I see something on Instagram, I pay for it. I've had so many people, I pay for it. And
my sister ordered snail, like juicy looking snail.
And
till tomorrow, it's still on the way.
You're still waiting for it. And so, I mean, as Sparkle, one of the things that we're doing is trust is not about people. Trust is about the process. Is that okay? We're coming up with escrow. So You pay into an escrow, you receive your goods, it's paid to the vendor. To the vendor. And this is nothing new. This is letters of credit. Now, see, one of the things that technology is allowing us to do is to democratize services that were the exclusive of high-end businesses, and we're bringing it down to the mass
takes
market.
Care of the technological cost.
Exactly. And so letters of credit are expensive for small businesses, but you can use technology to even build those kind of solutions. Inventory or payroll were for big businesses before, but now today they're in Sparkle. You start your business, you have your staff, you can pay them, you can work out their all the tax or payee related issues without actually hiring anybody for that. That couldn't have happened 5 years ago, but today and you're going to see more technology and people using technology to enable small businesses do things that before you had to get a big consultant, you had to get a big software from all these big companies that was just not possible.
Are you sure that my accountant, your job is still secured in this company?
And I can't. I mean, like, and unfortunately, I believe that the traditional model of account officer is going to be out. It's going to be
outdated.
It's going to be outdated because the thing about it is that your account officer is going to be your chatbot that has been personalized for you. And I'm sure if you use ChatGPT, as the more you use it, the more it knows
about me, yeah.
The more the answers are tailored. That's what your account officer does for you. But your chatbot that is ChatGPT enabled will know everything about you when you spend money, and will take information and knows more about the world and will give you better advice in a fraction of the time.
I'm convinced already. I'm convinced already. Esther, your job is at risk. Let me just be telling you now. But you see, quickly, cybersecurity.
Yes.
You know, because people have said that the next world war is going to be a cyber war. Yes. It's not going to be all the wars that we saw in the past.
Yeah, it already started in many ways.
Right, tell me.
There are many
yes,
stories.
There's a lot of stories around it.
Yes.
So that is I think, one of the biggest reasons a lot of people just are adverse to embracing technology and all of that. They don't want to sleep and wake up that, Sparkle, where's my money? You know, something has happened to the platform and the entire, So how are financial institutions, especially the ones that are digitally driven, how are they ensuring, that cybersecurity it's paramount, when it comes to some of the services that they're offering?
I mean, most banks are actually doing that. Even central bank insists that you must have certain, if you're going to issue cards, PC, DSS certification, a few ISO standard certification. Sparkle has them as well, because it's in our interest to protect our customers. Because a bank's currency is trust, right? Securing either customers' information or customers' money. And so if you cannot show that to do that, then you lose your license, or you lose the trust of the customer. One of them will come fast and furious. So there's a lot of investment in. First of all, there's a lot of investment in most credible organizations on cybersecurity, and it's a continuous effort because the criminals are not sleeping. And so for us at Sparkle, those are things that we have our in-house, but we also have outsourced expertise, because there are businesses that their job is to even, for us, we have people who are testing our systems to make sure that they're trying to hack, ethical hackers. Ethical hackers as well.
That's what my son wants to study.
Yeah. It's big. Yeah, that's going to be a business because nobody's robbing banks anymore. But it's also about, I always say, like in the days of cash and checks. So today, if you have 200 naira or 1,000 naira in your drawer somewhere, how do you know it's missing? You don't know. You wouldn't know until you go and check. So if you haven't been there in a while, but if money is missing from your account, you know immediately. You know immediately. And so it's a question of cyber theft is more, is more sensational than the everyday manual theft. And when you put it in proportion to the number of transactions that are done electronically versus physically, and the theft from the
both,
proportion,
yeah.
it's very, very small.
It's insignificant,
it's insignificant
for the number, for the
number.
movement.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk, because you touched on it quite. Just you glanced through it when you were talking about the limited e-commerce. What's it called? Like transactions. Why e-commerce has not really what's it called? Blown up. Yes. You know, what exactly can we do? Because whether we like it or not, right? E-commerce is a big deal. That's what is driving a lot of economies globally, right? And, you know, small businesses, imagine if they could embrace, you know, e-commerce platforms, they will scale quicker, right? So how do we, wait, first of all, why are we not scaling here? And how do we scale if we want to do it properly? Are we not doing it right?
No, look, when you look at the numbers, from a numbers perspective, we're not doing well because of the size of the country, the size of the economy.
Really?
Right? From e-commerce. But I mean, today in Lagos, you have people are ordering stuff.
Everything online.
Everything online. And people, but you're limited by that whole value chain of how many logistic companies are there, who's investing in logistics, how good are the roads, how good is the internet, how good are the people who are, because now your logistics requires people. Now, of course, and it also requires investment and security. Why? Because there's a trust issue there too, because I order something.
I've seen some global riders eating people's food.
5 minutes before or 10 minutes before, they're calling you to ask you, I mean, like, why do you have my number? Right? Because you made this order through an app. You should be getting the request through that app as well. And so those trust issues are there. So it's a combination of many things that it's education, it's investment in that area, it's the infrastructure, it's also government creating a better enabling environment. It's also about some changes to regulation and legislation that will even enhance investments into that space. Today, just the cost of doing business in Nigeria is much higher than in many parts because those things are not in place. But they are gradually getting lower. And I always say that the cost of internet data in Nigeria is not the most expensive in Africa. It's actually one of the lowest as well. So I think that is a good foundation for us to build on.
Absolutely. I mean, to the small point you touched on, I know that sometimes if I want to order something, I'll send it to my staff. I say, you go on. Because I don't just like the idea of that you're calling my phone.
Yeah. I mean, data security is going
it's a big deal.
It's going to be a big issue. And I believe, going back to things like open banking, that's why I like that, because it deals with those kind of things. You know, when you have a good process in place, it deals with those kind of issues, whereby if you don't follow that process, your activity sticks out like a sore thumb, and then people know, okay, don't trust, don't go here. So, and the new, I think there'll be new legislation that has come out on data privacy that the regulators and legislators are trying to ensure and enforce. Because if you're going to increase digital adoption, data privacy has to be paramount, right? And there must be zero tolerance there.
Absolutely. So quickly, before we run off, because we were having so much fun and time has, you know, market competitiveness and access to global markets. The world is actually very global now. Small businesses from here, they're sending products all over the world. How do we increase that? Because again, you can't help but accept the fact that when small businesses are able to, you know, have those access to global markets, they scale quicker and faster. So how do we increase that?
I think we also have to be realistic. We have to be. There's some things that no matter how good you are, someone else is going to do it cheaper. It's the competitive advantage of nations, right? They're going to do it better than you're going to do it. And so you have to find what you're good at. You have to look at countries like Singapore. They found what they're good at, right?
And they stuck to it.
Yeah, and they stuck to it. So in Nigeria, I believe in Nigeria there are many things that we're good at. Agriculture, right? There's agriculture. There's the creative industry as well. There's sports and athletics. So, and there's even, I mean, like we have seen even in the banking industry, even the financial space. Because I will tell you that when I came back from school in 1991, banking industry was, especially on the retail side, was 30 years behind. 20 years later, we were doing things on our apps that were not being done on apps. In the UK.
Abroad,
So we have, so necessity is mother of all invention. Many problems, many opportunities to innovate around it, especially, and adoption of technology in Africa has been quite high compared to European countries from a normal person on the street. So there are many things that we have to, but we have to see, if you don't adopt a mindset of excellence, you're not going to be competitive on the world stage, right? So it's not about producing, it's about producing, packaging, and making sure the quality standards are there. And so, unfortunately, in Nigeria, we accept too much mediocrity. Anyhow. And so if we don't have that mindset of excellence, and you can see companies that are doing well in Nigeria, right? And people are ready to pay that premium because it is that excellent mindset is limited in most places. And so if you cannot be competitive in your home ground, forget it.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time. But there was one ad that stuck to my brain many years ago. It says, one day cars will run on water. So I was scrolling through the streets of Instagram, and I saw a car that a young boy, an invention where he put water and the car is running. I've seen generators run on water and all of that. You know, I say this to say that if you had one final thing to say on innovation, right? Because sometimes innovation seems like impossibility until somebody then does it. It now becomes, what would you say about innovation to a small business that is watching?
No, I think innovation is about, a goal for yourself. And, you have to have vision and dreams. You have to dream about and see your business where, you have to see your business in the future. And once you see your business, it's that journey there. And how fast you want to get there will depend on how innovative and creative you are. And understanding what the challenges are and innovating around those challenges. And so that's what it is. But if you don't know where you're going to and you're not realistic with the problems that you want to solve, then you're not going to get there. I always tell the story that, the iPhone was created already 3 or 4 years before it was. Steve Jobs saw the internet was too slow for it then. But he knew that 2 or 3 years' time, it will be ready for the iPhone. So you must understand your environment, you must understand where you want to get to and what is needed to get there and how you're going to innovate around it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you've had a fantastic time.
Great questions. Thank you.
Now, if you missed our quote today, it says, innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity and not a threat. Just to go back to the person he just quoted, and this was said by Steve Jobs. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.